The Cranach Press edition of Shakespeare's Hamlet, printed in 1930, this copy printed on vellum. I'm Adam Douglas, Senior Specialist in Rare Books at Peter Harrington, and I'd like to show you this remarkable copy, which really is a beautiful piece of book production. As we see, this copy is in a beautiful red morocco binding, very elegant. This is the kind of pattern of binding which was originally used by the Doves bindery, and this binding was actually done by the W.H. Smith bindery, who'd had Douglas Cockerell working there, who'd learnt his trade at the Doves Press. So it inherits all that heritage of the private press movement. The book is notable, of course, for the wonderful illustrations in it, very striking. These blocks, which are cut by Edward Gordon Craig, who had produced a wonderful, he designed a wonderful production of Hamlet, and Count Harry Kessler, who owned the Cranach Press, had seen that publication before the First World War and invited Gordon Craig to illustrate this book. Because of the war, in fact, it took a very long time to finish, and when it was finished, only a very few copies were printed on vellum, the most luxurious and expensive form of the book. If we turn to the limitation page, which is not quite at the back of the book, but near the back of the book, we see here that this is designated copy number B. There were printed for sale 7 copies on vellum. This is one of those 7 copies on vellum. And the unique thing about the 7 copies on vellum is also that they contained 3 extra suites of proofs signed by the artist, which were presented in this separate portfolio, which I can show you. Here, again, in red morocco, red goat skin, a very lovely and plush-lined case. And here we see, when we unfold it, that the lucky buyer got 3 suites of the plates. There was a special paper designed for the paper proofs. There is a whole suite on vellum. So those are the vellum ones there, on the same quality of vellum as the book. So that's the half title that we saw earlier, now on its own, but signed by, or initialed in pencil by Gordon Craig. There was another paper designed by Gustav Mayo, who that is an unbleached paper here, and there's a whole set of these plates, and then another version of that paper dyed yellow. So you have the 3 suites of plates, matching suites, the same number in each, 51 extra plates from the book. And the book is remarkable for its illustrations, and some of the illustrations look particularly wonderful when they're isolated in this way. The use of the black and grey tones is sometimes best seen. Here's one example I can show you there, where the use of the black to pick out the single figure against the grey of the court there, and the presumably that is the production of the mousetrap. And as all of these are, except for one, signed in initials by the artist. For some reason, the top copy of the unbleached paper one has escaped Gordon Craig's signature. Perhaps he overlooked that one. Now, there are only 7 of these. There were 300 regular copies printed on paper, and there were another 15 special copies which had 1 suite of plates to accompany them, which were on imperial Japanese paper. But this is what the French would call the tête de tirage. This is the best, and indeed the second of the 7 copies on vellum. The only other copy we've ever been able to trace in commerce, other than this, was an 8th copy, which Kessler had obviously overprinted. He'd retained that for himself. It wasn't in this contemporary binding. It was in a Sandgorski and Sutcliffe binding that may have been later, I don't know, and was signed certainly by Edward Gordon Craig much later in 1961. So that's the only other copy that we've been able to find. This copy is superior to that in that it is in the original condition as issued in this really sumptuous binding and sumptuous presentation throughout of one of the finest illustrated books of the 20th century, the Cranach Press, Hamlet. The page, particularly the mise en page, is absolutely beautiful with the Shakespeare's text in the middle of the page, and Shakespeare's sources are reprinted. The original Hamlet stories where Shakespeare got his plot from are printed around it in the manner of a medieval book. But the pages have all the drama of the theatre with these blocks right across the page occasionally, sometimes single characters, sometimes pairs of characters like this. It really is like seeing a wonderful production of the play designed by Gordon Craig. For full details of this book and many other private press books, please see the Peter Harrington website.